Self-determination.
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 Self-determination is.
Self-determination is all about the freedom to choose, and it's all about all men were created equal, and there's no clause under that. There's no asterisk. All men were created equal, asterisk. And then down here it says except for people with disabilities. That means all people.
Yes, self-determination is about all people being equal. It's also about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What sort of life will it be? And whether people will have the ability to make their own choices.
Self-determination in where you want to live. Self-determination in public transportation. And I'm sitting here wondering, why are we still having to fight for this? We don't want anything special. We just want the right to live life the way that typical people live it.
I think there's a lot that we take for granted in our own lives, that we can choose where to live, what kind of community we want to live in. We can choose where to work and when to work and how much to work within reason. And we can choose who our friends are and what we want to do with our free time. And I think a lot of people with disabilities don't have those choices, or there are barriers in their way. And that's what self-determination is about, is trying to figure out how to have the same rights as everybody else has and the resources to be able to live the life that you want to live.
Some approach the issue somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but it is a serious matter.
I jokingly say self-determination is getting up in the morning and eating a bowl of cereal. But what I mean by that is it's self-directed services. You manage your own budget. It's all about yourself rather than the advisors around you. You're making the decisions, and they're kind of the middleman to just guide you, really. They don't direct anything. Self-determination is the person calling all the shots.
One of my responsibilities does entail spreading the philosophy of self-determination and getting people truly to understand its ultimate assertion that we as people with disabilities can and must determine the course of our own lives, and that we must do so within the context of having real choices and having more of an ability to have control over the choices that are available to us, rather than having limited options that really limit our success.
The fight for self-determination has a lot to do with changing attitudes.
The biggest battle is, to me, is mindset. People still do not grasp that full understanding that persons with disabilities, no matter what the disability is, no matter how severe that disability is, they still deserve the right at reaching their full potential in life. Whatever that full potential may be, society should try to help them reach it.
For so many years, society has looked at people with disabilities as people that needed help, that needed assistance. I think we are beginning to understand now that people with disabilities can be, are, must be contributing valued members of our communities, that people with disabilities have as much to offer our communities as any of us have to offer back. And it is that mutual reciprocity, that full citizenship, that I think is the wind underneath the wings of this movement.
The calls for equal rights and greater freedom for people with disabilities continue to grow, but policy changes are needed to achieve these rights and freedoms. Thomas Nearney, a pioneering force for self-determination, sees that government must adopt some new approaches.
We're looking at a system, a Medicaid-funded system, that this year will spend, between federal and state dollars, somewhat over $310 billion. Most of that money being spent in ways that don't meet the aspirations of people who are being served, where they lack the elementary freedoms that we take for granted, control over their own life, and being able to live in the community and support it in ways that are unique for them. We need to create
just a few things. New public policy that says clearly we have high expectations for all people with disabilities, no matter what age. That people need to be able to control their own lives. And we have to end the institutional bias in Medicaid. And we have to address once and for all the forced impoverishment of individuals with disabilities at any age.
Many experienced analysts believe the existing system has set people apart without the full rights of citizenship.
We have had a history in this country for a long time of having people that are marginalized and people that have not had the opportunity to fully partake, to be able to be further marginalized because of assumptions that people make about people's limitations. So all we're asking is that there be a willingness to step back and not to do away with regulations, but let's have sensible regulations. Not to give money without strings, but making sure that the strings are not strangulation cords. What we're asking for is simply to do stuff that makes sense, because a lot of what the federal government is doing in Medicaid is spending unnecessary money in facilities that people don't want to be in, with not getting the outcomes.
Early encouragement can play a key role in the extent to which a young person with a disability can grow in ability and self-sufficiency.
Every person has a different limitation, no matter whether you have a disability or not. You know, your potential is up to you. Years ago, I had teachers who had hope in me, you know, and they did everything that they could to make sure that I had an equal education. My mother was a stern advocate. She was my first advocate. You know, early on in school, she told the school system, "There's nothing wrong with my son, other than the fact that he was born with no arms. The only thing is, there's a mind in that person, and it's up to y'all to tap into it."
Much of the impetus of the self-determination movement is in assisting people in finding futures that are satisfying and productive. Kim Rosario has a graphic services firm and also performs at a comedy club.
I go through a fiscal intermediary who manages my finances, my budget that I have through insurance, as well as my own money. Then we divvy all that up into, say, staffing for my home that I have a person come in and help me with my basic needs and drive me to my meetings, and I have my own business, which that's self-determination too, not working in a sheltered workshop or bringing in a group home.